super blessed to have you guys as partners since I first started getting into missions. 2015 was my first time visiting here, and I've tried to make it here every other year since then. And that hasn't worked out every time, but we've gotten pretty close, haven't we?
Yep. Yes, we have.
And it's been really neat to get to know you guys better and to get to share with you guys what your partnership with me has been able to do overseas. And so we're going to look at some pictures today, but I want to ask you guys what you know about animals in the Amazon jungle. What kind of animals are you going to find?
Scary ones.
Scary ones.
Ones that wouldn't want to eat in the dark.
I have a few on the table, right? You guys can definitely come over and pet and check out because they're not going to bite. But when they're live, they do, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we have some really cool bugs that don't actually bite, but we also have tarantulas, which are my least favorite. And then there's also the piranha, but you have to pet the teeth, right? You got to touch them. But yeah, tell me some other animals that you think of. As soon as you hear Amazon rainforest, jungle, what animals pop into your head? Snakes. Yes, like the anaconda.
Orangutans.
Orangutans. Yes, we have tons of different kinds of monkeys and stuff. Yeah.
Tigers?
We have a jaguar. Tigers are more from African India kind of. But yes, the jaguar is actually the next largest cat after the one of the tigers. I forget which one it is, but it's a massive beast. And what's crazy about a jaguar is even with all of its bulk, it can actually climb trees, and it usually likes to jump down on its prey rather than just run it down like a cheetah or tiger would.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you always want to know what tree you're standing under when you're in the jungle.
Probably a lot of different bugs.
Because the snakes tend to fall out of the trees onto their prey as well. What else?
Probably all kind of bugs.
Tons of kinds of bugs. There's quite a few tourists that will come through the area just to see the different kinds of butterflies, the different kinds of birds. There's even so many varieties of mushrooms in the Amazon rainforest that you will not find anywhere else in the world. We have tourists that come just to see that.
Are they poisonous?
Incredible. There's a lot of poisonous types of mushrooms, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to just go into the jungle. Even if I've been told it's one that you can eat, I'm not just going to pick anything up because there's usually another poisonous one that looks almost identical.
Oh, wow.
But the local people, they know quite a few of the different foods and things that they can get from the jungle, which is really incredible.
Wow.
Another one I didn't hear was, I don't know if you guys know this, but along the Amazon River, one of the only places you're going to find pink dolphins. And they're freshwater. And that's a really cool thing to see. They're actually a lot more shy than the gray dolphins you'll see in the ocean, but they're very cool.
Are they actually pink?
They're actually pink.
Are they bright pink?
They can be. There's two varieties. There's a smaller variety that looks more like a saltwater dolphin, and it is like a gray pink. And then there's a massive dolphin that is literally a bright pink. And you have to be awfully careful because if you're in a canoe, they like to play around with the canoes and bump them. And they've actually capsized a few canoes in their excitement over.
Are they as friendly as a regular dolphin?
They tend to be more shy, but the bigger ones are a little more.
But they aren't aggressive or something.
No, they're not gonna bite you or try to bother you, but they do mess with boats sometimes, which is why we're really excited to have some big boats. I'll get a chance to tell you guys about that. But we're talking about the upper section, just this one spot up at the top of Peru, and the rest of Peru is either on the coast or in the highlands, where you're going to find mountains higher than the Rockies. But the lower section that is actually in the north is all jungle. And also, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil also hold a good chunk of Amazon rainforest. But most of the source rivers that flow into the Amazon come from Peru, coming down from the mountainous area. Snow that comes off the mountains goes down through that river, and at certain times of the year, the river can be quite dangerous because it's ripping whole chunks of ground off the sides of the bank and sometimes whole trees. And sometimes you'll even see almost what looks kind of like an island floating down the river past you. And so traveling that river at certain times of the year, especially when the snow is coming off the mountains or when the river is starting to get so low that the sandbanks start showing up underneath, all of those things, the local people learn their section of the river, and you can trust them to know where you can go safely. But I would not just take a boat and go along the river by myself. It would be the most dangerous thing I could choose to do. And so we're really blessed to have some amazing people who are very gifted at taxiing us around, because we're focusing on this Rio Maranhão, which is a source river. The Amazon starts about here and then flows out through Brazil into the Atlantic Ocean. Most of the people that live there are semi-nomadic, which means about every 5 years or so they're going to travel from one place that they've been living to another. So they don't really build homes that last. They'll build something that'll last about 5 years. When the termites start to take out the bottom level, or the river rises and starts decaying the wooden boards, they say, all right, here's our choice. We can move as a family to maybe a second cousin's village, where maybe we heard that they were doing better, or we can move to the city, or we move. Usually they try to move where somebody else they know lives, or we can rebuild here. And it's always that grass is greener mentality. Maybe, just maybe, we can do a little better somewhere else. But most of these people live in survival mode, which means with the seasonal jobs they're able to get and the crops that they have to wait to be able to cultivate, they have very little hope past just getting through today. We got to get through today, and then we'll worry about planning how we're going to make it through tomorrow. We're working along the Maranhão River and the Amazon in about 18 locations. And I'm going to get a chance to talk to you about this one. It's all actually outside of the district of Loreto. Loreto district is the size of Texas. It's a huge district. It's actually what Peru would consider more of a territory, because they haven't actually gotten a chance to settle most of this land yet. And so they're actually, in certain places, say like in Nauta or in Iquitos, allowing people to buy property in what's considered a settlement plot. And it's a section of jungle that they allow someone to buy almost nothing, maybe $200 a plot. Huge property. They have 3 requirements. They have to clear the land, they have to build a house on it, and they have to build some kind of fence around the outer edge of their property. And then they can have that land. You cannot have more than one of those plots. So if you have an extended family, you would buy a plot in each person's name and get a bigger chunk. But to be honest with you, just to really keep a section of land about the size of this church, per se, would take multiple people in a family to keep the jungle from taking it over again. It only takes a few months for once a family moves from a location, say a village decides they're too close or too far away from the river, and they all decide to move slightly one direction or another, or maybe they all disperse and go different directions, and that village no longer has people living in it. It'll only take about 6 months to a year before you would pass it by and never have a clue that somebody actually lived there. The jungle takes completely over it. And so you can see how just trying to keep a garden alive and try to keep the jungle away from your house enough that you can clear it and allow your kids to play without worrying about a snake coming along in the grass, or that something like that would be an issue for them. So we're meeting them right where they're at. We've got Lucy and Jerson, who are two of the members of our team of 4. We're a very small program. It's just the 4 of us working, and Jerson and his wife travel a lot together. And I travel with Lucy when we visit these villages. And we kind of have a route, a circuit route preaching kind of a route where Jerson will go out and travel and visit, and we'll work in Nauta. And then we'll go out and travel and visit, and Jerson and his wife will work in Nauta. But in Nauta, we're doing 6 services a week, and they're full unless there's a rainy day. And even then, we'll get a core group that lives right around the church. And they're hungry to learn more. And when we go out to these villages, we build them a church once they don't fit in their house church anymore. And the next pictures I'm getting, the church is full. We're not struggling to get people to come to our churches. We're struggling to get enough, not just resources, but volunteers and man hours in order to visit villages that want us there. We're one of the only programs working in this area that's actually doing follow-up. That's not just doing a one-time thing and then never visiting again, which is very common for them. They're very used to that from both mission groups and non-for-profit organizations. It means so much to them that Lucy and Jerson, and when I'm there, I as well, are regularly visiting them and partnering with them as a village and as a church. We focus on 3 main areas as a mission. Go S3M is our program name because Go is the first part, then S3 stands for sharing the gospel, strengthening churches, and serving communities. Whoops, went too far. And then M is for mission. Sharing the gospel, strengthening churches, serving communities. We're reaching people where they're at, and we're partnering with them through the pastor of their church so that they know and see that church as a place of hope and a place that they can come, and they know that pastor is someone they can trust and they can come to. We're empowering them to be the light of the world in their world, in their part of the world. What's so sad about this area is that I'm sure you've heard about places in the world, in the Eastern Hemisphere, on the other side of the world, that have never heard the gospel. This is the last part of the world, the Amazon rainforest. That's Ecuador, Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, and Peru. That there are still peoples and villages that have ever had a chance to hear about the gospel. And we're not going to make it as a 4-person team to the deepest locations of this jungle. We're not, for one, equipped, and there's too much difficulty to find these people groups that are hidden in this jungle area. But as we empower local people to build churches and to empower people with the truth of the gospel, God is sending them out into deeper parts of the jungle. We're already seeing fruit of that after the 20 years we've been working. The first 10, Lucy was doing this entirely on her own. About 8 years ago, Jerson joined her, and every single year she has been working, over the last 20 years, they have planted a new church. Those are no longer in existence, but we currently have 18 locations in the 22 years this program has been running. And we're planning on continuing to do the same thing, but not just creating converts, building strong believers, right? Because it's not about the church building, it's about people. And as we empower those people with truth, they're sharing that with other people. So I want you to see the map that I gave y'all. And I think, is there anybody who didn't get one of these? Please. Definitely you want one of these. And please keep us in your prayers. We always need, yes, definitely. Your prayers, because I was telling you about how difficult it is to travel this river, especially certain times of the year. When we bring our teams down, it's the safest time of the year to do it, from June to August. But even then, it can be pretty tricky certain times. And we are the first part of our travels is usually from Iquitos, where you can fly in from Lima. That's the only airport in the entire district is in Iquitos. And it's also the only place you can get a hospital. And that hospital is going to do the bare minimum. So you're not going to get any help with almost any surgeries or cancer at this hospital. You have to go out of the district to do it. We have a very small road, the only road in the entire district that runs from Iquitos to Nauta. Not that far. It's a 2-hour trip at 45 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. 12 hours of river is what it takes if we didn't have the road. And so they put that road in maybe 6 years ago in order to get ambulances back and forth, because Nauta is one of the only locations that has a decent clinic. And so they were sending people that they patched up at the clinic in Nauta. All of the people along this river shipped their people to Nauta, and then from Nauta up to Iquitos to get whatever aid they can. And that's all the access you have in this district for help. But the 12-hour river before, we're really grateful we don't have to do that anymore. But I want you to see the difference between what it would be to have roads in this area compared to what we currently do with rivers, the rest of the area. So we're running right across the middle. Nauta, there in the center, is right at the source of the Amazon and at the mouth of the Marañón River coming down from the mountains. And it allows us this great opportunity to be able to reach most of our villages easily. It's also that place I was telling you about where we have 6 services a week. And we've got multiple pastors and lay leaders that keep those services running. And then the upper floor, we've just finished, and we've got a little more work to do, but not too much. This summer, we're going to have the last team come and finish the upstairs, which is really exciting. You know, we even put some plumbing in because we got a bathroom in the upstairs back, which before that, we had to do outdoor showers with like a tarp thing I had sorted out for people, and we had 2 kind of like what you have porta potties, like outhouses, right? And one of them was falling apart so much, I said, this is a hazard. We're going to fall down through the floor. We're not using this one anymore. But that building is used for pastoral trainings twice a year, where we invite pastors from all of these different churches, and most of them are not pastors yet. They're lay leaders that are working in the position of pastors to come and learn everything we can teach them about the Bible and about how to share their faith and about how to be the shepherd of their congregation, of their village, and to be that source of hope for people. We even we're working on providing medical courses for these people. It would be amazing if the person in the village that was known to be able to help patch you up to get you to Nauta or Iquitos was the pastor. Incredible. So many opportunities that we have to help these people, and we're working on more. We just finished a year ago a deliverance ministry program that encouraged and helped them to know how to pray, to help people find healing and freedom in Christ. And so many things that we're helping them. And Jerson has just graduated. We actually had 4 graduations. He was the first one, and then bam, 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 we had 3 more graduations after him within this last year. He has worked 8 years to get that certification. And it's not in order to get the certificate. It's in order to get all the knowledge that comes with that, right? Eventually, he'll be able to get ordained as well because he has a certification with the Wesleyan Church. We do not require that any of our churches become Wesleyan to work with us. If they're preaching the Bible, we're going to support what they're doing if they're going to partner with us. But most of them become Wesleyan because they want to be under that umbrella of help. Because it's possible that our program will not be able to continue this forever. We have no idea how long this window of opportunity will be. We don't know how long the Lord will allow me and Pastor Bob and our teams to go down. Right now, Peru is one of the most open countries in South America. The problem, more than anything right now, is getting into isolated areas of this district. But so much is changing in the political climate of South America. And by empowering these people, they're the ones that are keeping this program going. They're the ones that are making the granddaughter churches that we did not plan. They started talking about the village near them, or the place that hadn't heard yet and needed the same thing that they were receiving. These 2 new boats have been astronomically helpful. I want to thank you guys so much for partnering with us because we couldn't have done this without you guys. The first boat we've had almost 2 years now, and the second one just this past summer. in May. We had that one built. Jerson's cousin actually builds boats, and we were able to get it at a steal compared to the prices for boats in the area. It was about $1,000 to get this frame done, and a little closer to $2,000 to get the larger frame done. And it's just incredible how the Lord keeps providing so that we can do this job more effectively. And with these boats, we've actually been able to turn our very slow process of visiting villages into something a little more organized and faster. It's almost what we're calling it church hopping, because you go about 8 hours down the river and then you visit every village and church that we have connections with on the way home, right? Just keep dropping by each one. Never was possible before when we had to hire somebody to drop us off and then pray that the Lord would have somebody pass by that we could hop on their boat to get back home. Does not work well for teens, right? Because they only have 10 days. That's all they got. So we were having trouble doing things before we got these. The bigger one has a bathroom and is actually around 54 feet long. Huge boat. We're thrilled because it allows us to travel even farther along the river where there's issues with whirlpools. Apparently, according to go through a whirlpool, one of those circular water, I don't know what you would really call it, but it's not safe, right? You can get pulled down to the bottom. With a boat twice as long as the whirlpool is wide, you won't have any issues. This little guy would not make it. But that one we don't use for long trips. That one's a closer villages boat. And we're looking at the possibility in future of providing one of these bit by bit to each of our pastors working in these villages so that they can do their own circuit in their very close area to their church, providing them with a way to feed their family and do ministry at the same time. That's going to be a long process. This is not going to be something we do in one summer, but we're going to start fundraising soon. As soon as this summer, I planned to get one of these to one of the people we've been training in Nauta. They're going to go to one of our villages and give us kind of a pilot program of how this would work and what it would look like to do this ministry. Let's read this one together, you guys. Isaiah 55:11. My word will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. This is an amazing promise, isn't it? That as we share and as we teach them to share, His word will not return in vain. It will continue to spread. And that's what the boat's name is. They've christened these El Sembrador, the sower, because that's what they're doing, is spreading seeds. Now, that was not a name that we as a team chose. That's the Nauta Church as a group chose that name, and that's what they've been using the boat for, these boats. 6 hours down the river, which is pretty close, we've got about 8 different churches. Buenos Aires, please pray for them. They have been open and closed and open and closed. Every time we get a pastor, we think we'll be able to keep the church running when we can't visit. They can do it for about 6 months to a year, and then they have either fallen as a pastor and they are no longer part of the church at all, or they have lost faith entirely. And this particular area in Buenos Aires has just been a very dark place, very difficult to get into and very difficult to keep the church family alive in this area. And in the last 2.5 years, Elmo Vargas, he had been one of those pastors that lost his faith years ago, that we had running this church at one point. His wife was one of the most faithful people I've ever met. She prayed for him all the time, but she had no one else to help her keep the church open. She was one of the only Christians that stayed faithful in that village. And he got this very bad disease that nobody in the district could help him with. He actually made a decent amount of money as a tour guide, and he could have gotten help had there been any help for what he had. And every time he would get desperate and he was in so much pain, he would pray, Lord, help me. And the Lord would give him relief. and then he would go and do something stupid, and he would be in pain again. And then the Lord would answer his plea for help again. And it went for about, according to him, at least 6 months of this, back and forth and back and forth. And finally, he was in so much pain. He said, Lord, either kill me or help me. I'm yours from now on. I'm not going to back down this time. I'm going to stay with my faith. I know that you have power. And Elmo Vargas has been very faithful these last 2.5 years. He's been coming to our pastoral trainings and learning everything he possibly can. He's kept the church open, and he's got a small congregation right now, his wife and him and a few people. This is a place where he's being attacked spiritually all. He's remained faithful. Says we're going to build a kitchenette on the back and put a cement floor in the church, make them a little more comfortable, and just bless them and help them see that they're not alone. They're not isolated, that there is a community of Christ that cares about them. 12 hours down the river, we've got Nuevo Ica, and that village has also been open. But before we started working with them, I believe around 3 years ago, this was a building that had never been opened. In probably about 10 years that it had been open before we arrived in this village, they were, that somebody had come in and built the building, but never actually followed up, never found somebody to lead the church, never even opened the building. And they invited us to come and use the building. We're going to take full advantage of that. We came right in. We started doing open air preaching and then inviting people into the church. And at that time, we had a teacher who was willing to be the pastor there. And that teacher had to move to another village because the government had given a different job in a different village. And it was closed again. And that just breaks our hearts every time that happens, because Lucy and Jerson cannot stay in a village long term. There's so many locations we're working. And so when Winston, who had just moved into the area about a year and a half ago, stepped up and started opening the building again, we provided him with every resource we could to keep the building open. We actually provided a medical team to that village and empowered, did things with his help in that village. 20 hours away. You see how much distance we're reaching now, and this is not because of just Lucy and Jerson. This is because of local pastors or lay leaders who stepped up and kept them open, because we can't visit these places as often as we would like. Maipuco and Seis de Mayo. Seis de Mayo was a house church, and Pastor Oyla and his brother kept this church open for years. Then they got to the point when they didn't fit in their building anymore, and we had to build them a church. And every time I get pictures from them, that church is full. We also partnered with a church about 20 minutes away from them that was already open, but there was only one man who had a Bible, and he had a packed church. Packed church, no other Bibles in the area, just him. Seis de Mayo, our policy is to bring at least 30 Bibles every time we visit a church and empower the pastor to spread those around. And when the Maipuco pastor heard that we were passing out Bibles, he begged us to come and share with him as well, because they had nothing past what he had in his hands. And he was still regularly having a huge number of people from that village coming to hear what he could share from that Bible. They're hungry. And they can't do it on their own. It's such an isolated area, and there's so much spiritual warfare on their families as soon as they step up. Please keep them in your prayers. This is the most amazing story of the last few years. About now it's been about 2.5 years, right before I came and visited you guys last time. We started hearing from Pongo de Canada, and it's just outside of our district. It's still Amazon, but it's high Amazon, where you'll actually find waterfalls. And what's really funny about the lowlands is you won't see almost any rocks. But up in the high area of the Amazon, you're going to find humongous rocks and all these waterfalls coming down out of the rocks. And it's not easy to travel through this area, but they actually do have roads. As soon as you get to Yurimaguas, you're going to start seeing a few roads leading into the high Amazon. A little bit better financially, a little more successful up in this area, and they actually have a really great hospital up in that area. The other side. We had been partnering over the pandemic with a couple named Humberto and Elita that were coming to our 6 services a week in Napa, and were very much a part of the church. And during that time, I never actually met them when they were in the Napa church because it was the pandemic and I could not go to Peru. During that time, she had a tumor growing in her what they call vientre, but her stomach area, and it just kept growing. And at the point when I started seeing pictures of her, it looked like she was about 5 months pregnant. It was just a huge tumor, and they had not been able to get any help at the clinic or the hospital. They couldn't do the surgery she needed. It was not malignant, but it needed to be taken out because it was continuing to grow. And so they actually had to leave us. They had to go all the way to the other hospital outside of the district. And it took them months just to get an appointment, and more months before they could even get the surgery scheduled, and more months before the surgery was done, and then more months for her to recover because the surgery was okay, but it wasn't done well, and the follow-up protection from issues with the cut continued to be an issue for about a year after she had surgery. Part of that problem was that she was still doing all of the housework as a lady of the house during recovery, which she should never have been doing. But her daughter dumped both of her little children off on her and took off. And she was taking care of her 2 kids plus her 2 grandkids during her recovery. And her husband was having major back issues and needed a surgery of his own right around the same time. There's so many things going on in their lives that were tragic and frustrating. And at the same time, when they arrived in Pomula Canadachi and built a little house and set themselves up, they realized even though they were on a main thoroughfare, and even though there was a huge hospital nearby, there was no church. Not one. Higher Amazon area, more access to everything, and there wasn't even a place they could buy Bibles. They had one Bible that we had given them when they worked in Nauta, and they started opening it up and said, you know what? We're going to do our own devotionals. We're going to invite our neighbors, and we're just going to do this at our house. And before you know it, they've got more people in their house. They're renting a little place in town, and they're running out of materials that we had given them when we were training them. And they're calling Lucy in a panic. What do we do with all these people? We don't know what we're doing. We are running out of material. Like, literally, that's how they're, and she's like, hello. It's okay. You're fine. We're going to help you. And so we went and we took a ton of Bibles, and they were just growing by leaps and bounds. They weren't fitting in that little place they were renting anymore. And so we had a team go down and build the foundation of a new church location. We were working on helping them buy a plot of land, but they were partnering with us. They were doing their part, even despite all of these issues with health. They kept this church going. And she's actually very gifted at fundraising. One of the most gifted people I've seen in this area for fundraising. And so she was able to pull people together from the community to help buy this plot of land and get materials that we needed to build this place. And within 2 years, we had a gorgeous building with a roof on it, and they already had it full. Every time they send me pictures and video, it's a full church. And what's absolutely insane is that they bought that plot of land on the opposite side of the road from them, so it's just across the road. But on one side of the road, it's completely developed, and on the other side of the road, nobody has developed the land yet. And the government had opened the opportunity to buy on that side not long ago, and so about 200 plots were available for sale. They got 2 of those plots. One of them we built the church on, and they want to add an addition to the church eventually. And they may have to soon because those 200 plots almost exclusively went to people that want to build homes. We have a whole nother section of people to reach that haven't all even moved in yet.
You build it, they will come.
It's true. And I'm telling you, this was not us. This was us empowering somebody. And they went so far, we've never even gotten close to that location when we're visiting villages. God is doing this through people that we have even just 6 months or a year to work with. There's Pongo de Canarachi, the building, and we definitely finished off. That was one of the better pictures. It's a whole building in one shot. Let's read this one together, guys. Matthew 25:40. Ready? Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. 25:40. Yeah, have you guys ever done where you read a scripture and then a little while later, or maybe even a year or so later, you read it again and it means something entirely different, or you see something new in it? And that's what this verse did to me this year. I was reading it again and thought, this is Jesus talking to us. He's the one that's asking us to pray. He's the one that's asking us to give. He's the one that's asking us to go. And I've found in my life, as I've continued to take advantage of every opportunity he's offered me to get involved in a type of ministry or to learn something, that he's just used all of those things to help me achieve a new goal or to work in a new place or gifting I didn't even know I had. This job has been ridiculous for me because when I first started, I knew I didn't have almost any of the giftings or training I needed to even survive here, let alone thrive. And I came with a willingness of heart and with a willingness to learn, and the Lord has blessed that. Every single time I said, okay, God, I'm not going to say no. He stepped in and done it. I've been the one that just got to be there to see him do work and to use what training I've had in Bible, for example, at Kingswood, in financial planning, with the previous mission I was working with, and all those things that I didn't ever maybe even think I would use as much as more than just from me personally. I've been able to use to help them learn and train them, and they have taught me so much. I don't know if I would actually survive if I was left out in the jungle by myself, but I might make it a day now. And they have taught me so much. Lucy's one of those kind of people who is so light of heart and so loving toward others, and yet if you left her in the middle of the jungle by herself, she would make it. Really incredible person. And it's been a privilege to be working with her this few years. She's been doing ministry and doing missions work for over 40 years out of the 60 years she's been alive. We partnered as Pastor Bob met her and started partnering with her immediately when he met her. See that not just did she have a huge heart for the people of her district, but that she had plans that would come to fruition, that she had a faith in God that would protect her as she traveled, and that people responded to her in an amazing way. She's got a gift for evangelism. And our 4-person team has only begun this ministry. The local people are going to keep this ministry going. Thank you guys so much for your time. If you have any questions about Peru or any animals or like anything, literally, the areas, yeah.
Yeah, do they have a language barrier you have to
For
deal
me,
with?
yes. It's Spanish, and everybody there speaks Spanish for the most part. There's a few tribal languages, but really deep in the jungle, and we haven't gotten quite that far yet, but we're planning to. Spanish is that bridge language that works for everybody, even the tribal languages. I definitely have a barrier. I struggle a lot, but the Lord keeps blessing me every time I fight that barrier in order to accomplish His will, right? And what's amazing about working with local people and partnering with them is that there's no barrier there. And even when it comes to things like living in this harsh environment, they're already used to it. So it's pretty incredible working with them because they're going to be the ones that make it into parts of this country and maybe even other countries near us that have never heard the gospel.
Do they have, when they have windows, do they have windows in their house to keep the bugs out?
Sometimes, yes. So most often than not, a window is more of a luxury. So like on the front of my house, there's one window. In the whole house, there's just one. The tendency is to fill the walls up to maybe the top of the door. And then that space above the door and before you hit the roof is left completely open. And that's as close to ventilation as they allow. Because I did not know this before going down, but mosquitoes only to a certain height. That's open, they're going to come right in. But if you just put your ventilation at the top of the wall, they're very rarely are you going to get mosquitoes in until you open and close your door, right? So windows, you'll see many, but they're more of a luxury item because you usually try and get screening or something because you can't open. Yeah, there's so many things I've never known before that I learned. We're going to ask a question.
When you said, you made the comment that this summer you were going to send a team to a place to start building a church.
Yeah.
Are you talking about team as a work team like from the United States? Is that
Yes,
what you mean?
that's a good question. We actually have two types of teams. We've got U.S. teams, and then we also have local Peruvian groups, mostly from NASA or Iquitos or some of our bigger and more established churches that will travel with us. And so more often than not, we will actually partner the groups together. When we have a team coming down from the States, we will add support partners from local churches to go with them. So almost every church we've built in the last 2 years has been a group effort on the part of local Peruvians and Americans. Yeah.
Is Lucy and that Pastor Bob, are they ordained?
Lucy is the only ordained Wesleyan we have in the entire district. We're slowly working on that. Part of the reason we have our Bible Institute is to empower people to get to the point where they can become ordained. Jerson and the other ones that just graduated, because of the requirements in Peru for the Wesleyan Church, they have to wait approximately 2 years after they graduate and go through having built their own church before they can be up for ordination.
Now, do
They
they
have
do
to.
it right there, or do they have to come back to the States to get ordained?
No, they can do it right there. Lima, actually, we have a really good partnership with the church in Lima, where their main location for the Wesleyan Church is, and they send us teachers for these courses. They also come and do the diplomas and the graduations, and eventually, when it comes time for ordination, we're working on getting it to the point where we won't have to send them to Lima to become ordained. We actually do it in our area.
Oh.
Lucy had to travel to Lima in order to get her ordination, and we've gotten a long way since she was first ordained. Jerson and the others that graduated after 8 years of work, it should never take 8 years again, because we're not just doing one training a year, we're doing 2 trainings a year now.
Oh. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. Anybody else?
I said to you before, with the pictures that you have posted and sent, I'm flabbergasted at the amount of children
Yes.
that are in these classes and in these buildings and doing all these things. I mean, there's probably 40, 50
At least.
kids
yes.
at a time,
We
if
can
not
get 40
more.
to 60 kids without even trying to
Yeah.
advertise. It's incredible. And we look, sometimes I go into these villages and I think, there can't be more than 10 families in this village, and we'll end up with 60 kids. And I'm like, okay,
I know.
even
the
if
kids
every
are
family
just-
has 10 kids, there's definitely more people that live here. It's incredible. how
It
many children
is.
there are and how hungry they are for the gospel. We've got more kids that come without their parents or without family, but they're showing up in droves at our churches.
Yeah.
And we've got people that, when we chat with the kids, we find out they live 2 hours away. They walked there to be there. And they skipped the breakfast their mom put on the table in order to make it in time.
Yeah.
We're definitely feeding these kids when they come, but they're the ones that, whether they know we're going to feed them or not, they're sacrificially giving in our
It's
programs.
amazing. I just, like I said, flabbergasted at the amount of kids. I just, where do they come from? You're out in the middle of nowhere, but yet there's all these, like you said, 50, 60 kids at a time.
Yeah. There's
It's
not a safe
amazing.
place for them. I mean, the village as a whole works to keep a safe environment for children, but they, by the time they're y'all's age, are already feeding or helping feed their families. They're working as what we call breadwinners, right? People that either help in the fields or go into the jungle and hunt for different kinds of things that they know they use and bring that home to share. Most people don't have more than a third or fourth grade education because by the time they hit fifth, sixth grade, they're already needed full time at home just to keep everybody fed.
Oh, wow.
And so most of our pastors are struggling with that confidence level because how do you become a leader in a village or in a church when you're struggling to read the Bible for yourself or understand it?
Right.
And that's where the trainings come in. So it's such an important role. And we've gotten to the point now where they don't even need me or Mr. Bob for these trainings. We've got a system where the last 2 trainings we've had, Lucy and Jerson, and the people that come from Lima have been able to run them themselves. We've helped with funding in order to keep them running, but I don't even need to be there anymore for them to keep this going.
So when you are there, when you do visit like these villages, and how do you
Survive?
yeah.
I bring a lot of bottled water. I always have a filter, and I've got like a go bag that has a lot of supplies for emergencies. When my first year, when I went down, it was very apparent to me that I would not make it if I if something happened to the boat, for example, and I had this nightmare that something would happen to the boat, and everybody would swim to one side of the river, and I would be on the other side by myself. And I thought, Lord, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's a lot of safety measures to keep that kind of thing from happening. And Lucy's amazing. If I only, how they say, if I could call in a favor from God and knows how to survive in the jungle. She's been doing it since she was little, just like you guys. Surviving on the plants that are from the area, knows exactly what kind of bugs she can eat. I mean, she knows when she gets sick with a fever, what plant will help her. And the local people don't have the same issues with the parasites and bugs that I do. So that's one thing I do extremely careful about is water, and all food needs to be cooked. Boiled mostly is the way I prefer it. And if I drink local water, it has to be boiled for at least 30 minutes. But I take filters and I have bottled water I take. We'll go down the river and I'll have, bottled water and everything. And Lucy will just stick her hand in the river right there by the boat and drink. I'm like, what are you doing? I have water right here. I will share. Oh, it's no big deal, she says. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for partnering with us. This is so much because of you partnering with us that we've been able to accomplish so much.